Hey there, day 14. I'm here at the local landfill here in the mud. You can see the garbage and stuff here behind me. They gave me one of these little nifty vests so nobody would, well, I don't know why. But anyway, wanted to go over day 14 with you guys. It stinks up here, it smells. You see probably your trash all over here behind me, and the smell is just foul. Anyway, day 14 talks about this, starts with Matthew 5, verse 6. It says, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled." And he starts off, first paragraph, "You and I are at the banquet table of God's presence and truth, but too often we're so full of junk that we're not hungry. In actuality, spiritually, we're starving to death. We've settled for garbage instead of feasting on the nourishment God richly provides." There's a guy named Chris Hertz in this story that he talks about, and he's actually the head of Word Made Flesh Ministries in India and all around Asia. This ministry provides shelters for homeless people, those with AIDS and those inflicted with other diseases. Years ago, Chris made a decision to go to Calcutta, India. Calcutta, India, and then Mexico City are the largest populated cities in all the world. But he said, Calcutta is the poorest, so he decided to go to Calcutta. And there he worked with a ministry with Mother Teresa called the House of the Dying. And his job was to go all over the place and find people that were dying there on the streets, and he would bring them in. I mean, Calcutta, the workers every night would come into the streets of Calcutta, and they'd find many people that had died just that night before. And so he was going, 13 million people, just in this city are destitute, just poor. And he said tuberculosis, this lung disease, was rampant. People just coughing, old men and women just coughing their lungs up. And so part of his job was to go and find these people, bring them to the House of the Dying, shave their heads, they give them clean clothes, give them a warm meal, and just comfort them, not to heal them. They couldn't. They were beyond healing physically on this earth, but share the gospel with them and provide them a great atmosphere in their dying times. What a ministry. I can't even fathom about doing that, but they'd shave their heads and they'd pass around this jar as these people are coughing, and they'd pass around this jar, and whatever they coughed up, it would go into this jar, and they'd pass it around. When the jar was full, they'd throw it in the garbage. They'd have one of the workers' jobs was to go around with a syringe, and people with leprosy would come into this House of Dying. Leprosy is a skin disease where parts of the nose or ears would fall off. Terrible, awful skin disease. And so one of the workers' jobs was to go around with a syringe and stick a needle in this pus-filled part of their skin and pull that pus out and empty it into this jar, and then that needle would go around until that needle was too dull to pierce the skin, and then they'd throw those needles in the garbage. And Chris's wish, because he did it one time, was not to take the garbage out anymore. And also in the House of Dying, they would bring in these children, 4 and 5 years old, that were full of HIV/AIDS. And it was because these men of the certain Hindu religion, the sect, a certain part of this religion, believed that men with sexually transmitted diseases, all they had to do was have sex with a little virgin girl, like 4 or 5 years old, and that sexually transmitted disease would leave them. And so you have little 4 and 5-year-old girls who have taken this abuse, and they're in the House of Dying. So anyway, Chris, he just didn't want to take the garbage out because of the stuff that was in there when he went out the back door to walk over to the dump. Child after child would come and tear the garbage bag from him, looking for food inside. of that garbage bag. And he was just sitting there going, no, no, you don't know what's inside here. It was the people's hair. It was the stuff from the jars. It was the stuff from their wounds for the lepers. And he was just saying, no, you don't. And you know, the point that David is making in here, that's us spiritually. So many times we run to the garbage of this life. A couple of days ago, we talked about that everything in this life is rubbish compared to knowing Jesus Christ. And I don't think we look at things. We look at the world around us, all these distractions and things of the world, and we're like, ooh, but it's garbage. What are the things that are garbage to us that we let in to our lives? This was a very, very tough devotion to read. I couldn't imagine being Chris Hertz. I want to Google him. I want to look his ministry up, because what a man of passion, just to go after people that are dying and just make them comfortable. You know, it's a challenge to us. He says, many of us are like those kids scrambling for garbage. We elbow each other at the mall, at the theater, in the back seat, at home, at work, on the net, and at school, in our hunger for food. But the food we lunge and fight for is rotten and diseased, and we eat it. We eat it every time we fill our minds and hearts with sexually suggestive movies or music. Every time we make fun of somebody for whom Christ died. Every time we value the praise of people more than the praise of God. Every time we live to get revenge on someone who's hurt us. And every time we try to put things in God's place in our hearts. We're so full of this junk that we aren't hungry for the food that really satisfies and nourishes. Sure, we may listen to a message or a song about God, and that message has much appeal as another bite of pizza. When we're so full, we're about to explode. Our souls are full of so much garbage, we don't even recognize our need for God's food. Remember that verse we started out with, Matthew 5:6. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. They will be filled. As we go to our time now of journaling, take this time, look at this. Number one, describe what you think Chris felt like when he watched those children rip open the garbage to get scraps of food. Number two, in your life, what are some things that promise to satisfy us, but in reality poison us? Have you experienced this poison in your own life? Explain. Number three, list all the sources of poison, or at least non-nourishing spiritual, emotional, relational food around you. Number four, describe a time when God's truth and grace was a joy and a delight to your heart. Number five, where, when, and how can you make better selections about what you feast on? Number six, read Jeremiah 15:16. Think about this verse and use it as a guide as you pray. Then he encouraged us to memorize Psalm 56, 3-4 by writing it down 3 times. Day 14, it's hard to think of all the junk in our lives, the garbage in our lives we're filled up with. I wish I could encompass the smell and transfer the smell of this place to you. It's just garbage. And so really consider what you're feeding on, and allow God to purge that junk from your life. We'll see you at day 15.